doing here?
I tracked you down because I felt we had a connection.
What?
I'm joking. I work here now to sell the moon.
Et vous faites quoi comme travail? Julie a pas su me dire.
Ladies and gentlemen, our new secret weapon, the Mega Minions.
Welcome to our film show here on Arts 24, where we're taking a look at the week's releases with critic Emma Jones. Hi, Emma.
Hello.
Now, we're starting this week with Fly Me to the Moon, a rom-com starring Scarlett Johansson and Channing Tatum. It's set during the Apollo 11 space mission. Tell us more about this one.
Yeah, it's a great movie that actually manages to feel very old-fashioned and modern at the same time. So old-fashioned in the sense, you know, the chemistry between Scarlett Johansson and Channing Tatum, the story and the setting in the 1960s makes it feel like one of those old-fashioned Rock Hudson, Doris Day movies. And that is something, that the stars themselves have admitted to, that it's got that vibe. But modern in the sense that, tongue-in-cheek, it deals with fake news. And that is the conspiracy theory that the 1969 moon landing was staged.
It was, wasn't it?
Of course. Well, anyway, you'll find out more in Fly Me to the Moon. But directed by Greg Berlanti, he's probably better known in Hollywood as a writer and producer. Johansson and Tatum, they play two fictional characters. She's Kelly Jones, and she's a hotshot advertising executive who's sent to increase the profile of NASA during the run-up to the space program. And he plays a pilot who's lost several good friends while America has been trying to send somebody into space. And then you've got Woody Harrelson. Okay, always good. And he's playing an agent whose sole objective is to win the space race by any means necessary. But really, how frightening could Woody Harrelson actually be?
Well, I wouldn't underestimate him. Well, let's take a look at the film. This is Fly Me to the Moon.
NASA needs a marketing specialist, and you are the very best.
Excuse me? What are you doing here?
I tracked you down because I felt we had a connection.
What?
I'm joking. I work here now to sell the moon.
NASA's not something that you sell with a jingle and a slogan.
When I'm done, those men are going to be bigger than the Beatles.
Looks very stylish, quite Mad Men. It really does feel like a movie that we don't see very often from Hollywood these days.
Good comparison there with Mad Men, I feel. Yes, and in fact, Fly Me to the Moon was going to go straight to streaming, but it was judged to be so good that it merited a cinema release. And I think it's really a relief to have this light touch treatment of a subject that would normally be the subject of a stodgy biopic. You know, although, of course, that sense of American patriotism is still really inherent in the film. Here's Channing Tatum talking about the curious blend of the old-fashioned and modern in the film.
It's kind of a movie that you don't see get made anymore. It has an older tone, but like she said, it does feel modern. And I think when I met Greg, the director, about it, Greg Berlanti, I thought we were gonna do this very like sort of pastiche sort of tone where like I don't know, like we were talking about His Girl Friday or something like that. And then he was like, no, I definitely want it to be you guys and like really play with it. And like he really wanted us to improv a little as well. And that kind of made it a little bit more modern and not so rigid.
So let's be honest, Fly Me to the Moon doesn't have youth appeal in the way a recent box office hit like Challengers had, for example. So in order to make money at the cinema, it's going to have to get the middle-aged crowd and above out to see it. But I think if you just think of a movie like Richard Linklater's Hitman, which was a huge hit on Netflix recently, I think Hollywood underestimates the power of the rom-com at its peril, and particularly when there's a third element in it, as there is in Fly Me to the Moon. And for me, you know, the actual space landings, the last act, the space landing, the manufactured one, that's what made viewing this film a real pleasure.
Okay, well, as the target demographic, maybe I will go along and
you
see
and me
that
both.
Well, on to the next film. This is the big French language release of the week. My New Friends, or Les gens d'à côté. This is by French author André Téchiné. It stars Isabelle Huppert. Téchiné's made 3 films within the last 5 years. He's highly prolific. How does this Antoine, My New Friends, how does it stand up?
Yes. Well, in 2019's Farewell to the Night, Téchiné reunited with Catherine Deneuve, and she's the star of one of his biggest hits, My Favourite Season. And now, in this film, he's back with Isabelle Huppert, who he directed in 1979's The Bronte Sisters. So Huppert plays Lucy, and she works with the French police, and she recently lost her life partner, who was also with the police. But she finds friendship and new beginnings with the family who've moved next door, Jan and Julia and their small daughter. But she does hide the fact that she's with the police from them, and that's because she discovers that Jan is under surveillance, and he's one of France's so-called Black Bloc protesters, and that's a protest strategy where people wear black and they cover their faces in order not to be recognised. And Lucy clearly has now got a big dilemma.
Okay, sounds quite topical as well. So let's see a clip of My New Friends.
Et vous? Vous faites quoi comme travail? Julie a pas su me dire.
On va au vernissage de papa. Tu viens? Il est beau sur ses dessins.
Puis, muette. Je me suis attachée à lui, à sa femme, à sa petite fille. Vous avez des parents quand même. Ils veulent plus entendre parler de nous.
So Téchiné has a reputation for exploring close relationships, often set against a very real-life, contemporary background. It looks like this film, My New Friends, is very much in that category as well.
Absolutely, yeah, spot on. But of that recent set of films that you said he'd been making, I'd say My New Friends is probably Téchiné's strongest in a while, and that's partly because of the supporting cast. You've got 120 BPM's Nawel Perez Biscaya playing Jan. You've got Hafsia Herzi as Julia, and My New Friends also has the star quality of Huppert, and the fact that it makes an impact at all during its 80-minute runtime is really down to her. She really grasps and embodies the stillness and the solitariness of Lucy, and the fact that, you know, this family gives her something to live for. Very interesting to me, anyway, that Isabelle Huppert has twice recently been playing a character who's really dealing with the grief of a partner. She was fantastic in Sydney in Japan, which was at last year's Venice Film Festival. And in fact, of course, Huppert is returning to the Mostra in Venice in late August as chairperson of the jury.
And that's not the only big prestigious moment. She's going to be getting a prize at the Lyon Lumière Festival in the autumn of this year. Isabelle Huppert clearly never sleeps. Well, on to a smaller release now. That's Sons, or in its original form, it was called Vugter by Swedish director Gustav Möller. Let's get a feel for this film. This is Sons.
Jeg vil gerne flyttes til midt og 0. Tak.
Det er en sikret afdeling, det ved du godt, ikke?
Ja.
Rami, afdelingsleder.
017 der er med.
Emma, you said that you really enjoyed this film. Tell us what's so special about it.
Yeah, well, back in 2018, you might have seen a Danish film called The Guilty, and it was shot very tightly, very compactly around a police officer in an emergency call centre, taking a call from somebody in distress, and it wasn't quite what it seemed. If you didn't see that movie, you may well have seen the Hollywood remake from Netflix, starring Jake Gyllenhaal and directed by Antoine Fuqua, so big remake there. Now, the original The Guilty was made by Swedish director Gustav Möller, and he's back with this film, Sons, and it stars TV series Borgen's leading lady, big fan of her,
icon.
Sidse Babett Knudsen. Love Borgen. So that's a selling point for starter. And as you saw in the trailer, she plays a very compassionate prison officer called Eva, who nevertheless, when a certain prisoner, Mikkel, played by Sebastian Bull, arrives, she asks for a transfer to his wing. And why she asks for that will unfold. And you're also going to see, if you go and see the movie, Eva, she's going to totally unravel too. Now, in many ways, Sons does share some similarities with The Guilty. It's a similar claustrophobic, grey setting. It's very tight shots upon the character. Really, there's a female protagonist now instead of a male, but it's an incredibly meaty role for Knudsen, and she becomes totally feral at times. I guess that's a label, you know, that people would have normally expected the inmates in the film to do, but no, it's all about her.
Oh, that sounds fascinating. A bit of a tenser Scandi noir there.
Oh,
okay, well, now to something very, very different. Finally, just in time for the summer holidays, in fact, comes Despicable Me 4, The Continuing Adventures of Gru and the Minions, 7 years after the Despicable Me 3 made more than $1 billion at the cinema. That was quite successful. Can this one do as well?
It's a lot. Well, it's already been out in the US for a few days now, and it has gone over the $100 million mark. So it looks really like animation movies are the safest bet for Hollywood at the box office when you think of Inside Out 2 or vice versa, you know, becoming the only $1 billion movie so far of 2024. It has been a matter of years, as you say, since the last Despicable Me film. And there's been a few Minion spin-offs as well. I can't get enough of the Minions. But I'm happy to say that Despicable Me 4 isn't tired in the slightest. In fact, it finds a new freshness and an energy, I'd say, with the character of Gru, voiced, of course, by Steve Carell. And he's facing off against Will Ferrell, voicing a very French-sounding villain called Maxime Le Mal.
Sounds fun. Very much on brand for us.
Yeah, and he's a graduate of the Lycée Pas Bon, where Gru once upstaged him in a school talent contest, you know, so they're really going at each other. And add to the mix that the misanthropic Gru has even more daddy issues at stake because he now has a baby son, as well as his 3 adopted daughters. And there's a teenage influencer in the mix called Poppy, who wants to be a super villainess herself.
Well, it sounds like it could be fun enough for parents and kids. Well, thank you very much for the roundup, Emma, this week. We'll leave you with some of those excitable little guys from Despicable Me 4. Do check in with us on our website and our social media for more movie news and plenty of arts and culture too.
Here you go, Brittany.
I can't say my name is Brittany. That would be a lie.
Why can't you be more like your sister Edith? She lies all the time.
No, I don't.
See, she's lying right now. Beautifully, I'm my dad.